Okay, so we are going to start. Okay, so we are live. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Christian Epps, and I'm the founder of Lights Camera Diaspora. Lights Camera Diaspora is a US-based, we're based in Hollywood. We are a nonprofit whose main goal is to share skills between the US market and the African entertainment industry, all entertainment industry, US and Africa, to share skills between the two. Human resources, equipment, time and energy and love, and business. So we have today Mona Lisa. Care to say good morning? Mona Lisa is the producer with Lights Camera Diaspora. She has a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll continue the introductions.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Just a couple of housekeeping things this morning. This is a webinar, so it's a little bit different from a meeting if you're used to that. We have a Q&A box, and that Q&A box allows you to put in your questions, and Christian is going to moderate and read some of those questions out, and we're going to answer them as much as we can. If you have a comment and you would like to join, we're gonna do this one a little bit differently. You can raise your hand and put whatever it is that you want to contribute on the chat box, and I will bring you in as a panelist and we will be able to see you. So you should get your cameras ready if you're wanting to do that with us today. And the chat box, all of the panelists are going to put in their website or social media handle, whatever they want you to have. If they reference a film and equipment or anything like that, they will say it and I will put it in there, or they will put it in there for you as well. If you have anything to tell me directly, you can say it on the chat box and I will read it, and I will keep putting information on the chat box as we go along. That's it. Thank you for joining us.
Excellent. Ladies first, Jinna Mutune. Am I pronouncing it correctly? Last name?
Mutune.
Mutune.
Mutune, yeah.
Jinna is an activist and filmmaker, equal parts both, I dare say, from Nairobi.
Building on the activist capacity.
Well, today you're building on it one step further in a certain way. Yes, we're glad to have you. Thank you. Shawn Peters, cinematographer and still photographer as well, from Baltimore. Is that what we say now, as opposed to New York?
I mean, I'm still New York.
New York? Okay, fine.
Split.
And a little dab of LA. I see you in LA. And we have Mandla Dube, filmmaker in general, cinematographer, writer, director, producer. More producing and directing these days, and writing. Yeah. Mandla is based in Joburg, and we're glad to have all of you. So one of the main things about Lights Camera Diaspora, our main interest is to give people things that will help them eat. So, you know, this day and age is a lot of conversations in society, and it works very well for us because our efforts, we started in, I think, 2013, I started this idea. I approached Lorna K. Johnson. Mona Lisa and I were already working together on our sort of professional production side. And I approached Lorna K. Johnson, who is probably on. Is Lorna on? And of course, ask her if she wants to come on at some point to help us put some structure to it and make it a structure. And we are now a US-based nonprofit officially. And what our goal is just this, to bridge a gap between the US market and the African entertainment industry, and to take many of the resources on both sides and shuttle them back and forth as best we can. And this moment in society, in the US in particular, but around the world, apparently, there's a lot of conversation and attention about growing opportunities and reframing interactions for primarily Black people on the planet, but also the planet in general. When I see all the protests that are going on around many other countries around the world, I see Black Lives Matter conversation at the forefront, but I also am personally of the belief that there's a lot of other contributing factors. So we're seeing now the results of a hyper form of capitalism and its effect on people. We're seeing the technology that then brings us, though we're closer today, it also brings us further apart from each other in a different way, particularly away from our immediate family as we stare at screens more often. And so I'm a firm believer that some of the support that the African Americans and the Black Lives Matter movement is getting is in part because we as a community of humans on the planet are not getting what we need at a fundamental level. And Lights Camera Diaspora is focused on contributing to a solution to that where we can. We can contribute to that solution in the entertainment industry, as that is our skill set and the skill set of our listeners and of course our panelists as well. So our goal today is to be specific about things we can do to improve our industry situations, personally, community-wise, politically, economically, however you see that. We want to spend our time on specifics of what can happen. So, you know, I know when I was young, there was, somebody would say, oh, we need to work together. Oh, we need to advance. Oh, we need to collaborate. Oh, we need to, you know, do good or be good or stay consistent. And all these things are true, but often that's not a starting place. Often that's not an action item that we can accomplish. That's an idea. So we're trying today to focus on action items that we think will improve our industries, our collaboration together, and our societies in relation to our industries. And so we're going to try to be very specific. I'm going to try to help us all stay very specific of things we can do. And so we will get started. So to start the conversation, I would love to first just put on the table the issue of corporate and political and social institutions wanting to support and contribute to the Black Lives Matter cause and how that is going and how we can take advantage of that opportunity so that next week or next year, when that interest may have waned to some degree, I won't presume it's gone away, but you know, when the moment has passed with all this excitement that's happening now and all this energy, when it has subsided to some degree, how we can take advantage of that. One of my thoughts is, you know, there's companies going around saying, oh, let's do IG Live. Oh, let's do podcasts. Oh, I want to have you on and expose you to my people, to my followers. So if you're a company who's looking to get involved, excuse me, who's looking to support, what can we ask? I'm asking the panelists, what can we ask of you? What can these people, as the listeners, ask of those institutions that want to support that will be long lasting beyond, you know, a 2-hour IG Live? I'm not against them. I'm just saying, how do we manipulate that so that we end up better off, you know, in a week or a year? Anybody?
Can I come in? I can come in, I guess.
Yes, please.
I think what's important is going to be partnerships. It's not going to be a thing of what can these companies, you know, donate, because, you know, the minute that it becomes a thing of these companies giving social responsibility donations, that means they can get away with, okay, we're making a donation, don't come at us, you know. We're already doing something. Don't scream at us. Scream at Donald Trump.
Did our donation, right? Right.
Yeah, because I've donated.
We paid our bill. Don't call me.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So we need to take it away from the whole civil rights campaign, because King, Malcolm X, Mandela, they did that. That was their legacy. Now we need to be able to step it up to where we are dealing with this economic apartheid, because that's what's going on. We are dealing with economic apartheid right now. And we need to be able to inject ourselves into a partnership with these, especially technology companies, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I would propose that that's what we do.
Partnerships like what? Like, so if I'm a listener and I say, oh, that's a good idea. Now, what do I do tomorrow to further that cause? How do I advance that cause?
Well, you package yourself, you know, because you're dealing with a corporation, all right? So you go to that corporation and say, I've got a corporate that I've set up with, you know, me, apps, Mutune, Peters, and Mona Lisa. We've got a company that we are calling Lights Camera Diaspora Pty Limited or Incorporated, and we want to supply you guys with the bulbs inside. You know what I mean? That kind of
What? Supply us with what?
with the bulbs inside the. You know, if you're making light fixtures, or if you're making lenses, you literally go to them. We want to go and supply you with the front element of the lens or the housing of the lens, or we want to be a part of Final Draft, for instance. You know, script writing software. We want to be able to be a part of the software development of the screenplay. You know what I mean? Like we got to be thinking beyond.
Yeah.
You better believe that when Thomas Edison found the light bulb, there was a brother or a sister there saying, "Hey, I got it. This is how we do it." And then Thomas Edison took the credit.
He was. It's Lewis Latimer.
Yeah, Lewis Latimer was right.
You can name him. His name was Lewis Latimer. Yeah,
So,
I agree.
You know,
I think.
Yeah. What was his name?
His name was Lewis Latimer. He actually invented the filament that Thomas Edison's original light bulb only lasted 20 minutes. And it was Lewis Latimer, who was his partner, who was black, who developed the filament that lasted what we have now, modern day filament.
Now, Shawn,
but anyway.
So now you got to go to a studio, Paramount, Netflix, and say, we want to tell a story about Latimer. I mean, those are the kind of partnerships.
So when you talk about supplying, a friend of mine is just getting into, he's a gaffer in the film business here in LA, but he just ordered a bunch of supplies from China for cleaning and disinfecting, and is hanging his hat out as a health supervisor in this brave new world of people needing to be hired to clean sets.
Yeah.
And he's black, so he can work that from two angles. One is several angles. People need that service on set now. Producers need that service, right? As a black man, he can work that moment where corporations that previously have not had doors open for black people, he can work that angle. And because he is a department, he works as a gaffer in the film business, he understands production on set, right? So he can work that from several angles.
Yeah, that's a great right now sort of solution. I think the other thing we should be thinking about also is, you know, sort of what are our new exhibition models for today? You know, one of them is all the drive-ins are having a new resurgence.
Yes.
Right? And that's basically a big screen in a parking lot.
That's right.
You know, and somewhere to collect money to get into the drive-through. But something like that as a cooperative, something simple as that, you know, people like Black Star and other festivals, you know, instead of like, you know, how much does it cost in a city like Baltimore or Detroit to buy a parking lot? You know, and then what does it cost? And then what does it cost to for the screen and projector? Yeah. You know, those monies are not that kind of budget is not huge. It's not nominal, but it's not huge. But to think about distribution in a different way, you know, can you charge people $5 to come in and see a film now outdoors or in your car? And then also the online models of, you know, streaming for money and streaming for pay, but they start thinking about now how do we deal with how we can distribute our content and make revenue without the big, corporations involved, the big movie theater corporations involved,
So how can we do that in a sort? What steps can we take in a sort of right now manner to help that idea happen?
Well, I think right now I would be looking at vacant lots in the cities, especially that are affordable. Cities like Detroit, cities like Baltimore. There's a surplus. Yeah, there's a surplus of in some cities. Other cities like New York, there's a barrier of entry. But there are definitely cities in this country where things like parking lots and empty and vacant lots and even buildings that are vacant are in a surplus. And the city's actually looking for people to, I know in Baltimore, they're giving buildings away and looking for people to use buildings because these spaces are falling apart. So it's also just trying to think about what is the need holistically. You have a need for an audience. You have a need for certain cities to have infrastructure used in a alternative way instead of urban decay. All these cities are talking about urban decay and renewal.
Yes.
And so how do you be a part of one, initiating maybe a new exhibition model and also sort of creating a spin on urban decay? And how do we, that's just something I was thinking about recently.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the land, and for many folks, particularly on the continent where there is more land available, that's a much easier option to come by in terms of partnering with someone who owns some land. Mandla has land in Joburg, I know. And to say, hey, we're going to screen a movie and start collecting a little bit of money.
Yeah, it could be online, whatever it is. Things are so digital now. It's so easy to digitally collect money,
The other thing, speaking of land and all, I'm a farmer as well. I
love that.
Yeah, but the other thing is to make it an experience, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a thing of people are going to a drive-through, and if anybody knows how to entertain, it's Black people. We know how to entertain.
Make it a whole thing.
Yeah. So if you look at it as a curatorship, of you're curating for a certain people's lifestyle, you know what I mean? And then that's how you look at it. So now what you've done is you've opened up the whole leisure value chain. It's not just people are coming to see a movie. They're coming to spend time, the kids, you're going to have them for, I don't know, 5-6 hours. Just like you go into the mall. Like you take that mall experience to a particular space that they wouldn't otherwise be thinking they would watch a film at, like I'm on a farm here. So if you come bring them here at the farm, you have the kids come and do, they're harvesting herbs and that kind of stuff. When they're done with that, they're having jumping jacks. And then in the evening, the whole family comes into the barn, and then they watch the film. And then after that, they go and, there's dancing that takes place. And then if you can even suck a little bit more out of their pockets, you can even build, places for them to sleep. And then I'm just saying, like, we need to be really, really innovative. And
I think that has to go back to that. I think we're going to have to go back to like old school rent party. Like old school poor people money, the way we kind of susu, our funding and with rent parties. And
I love the rent party conversation. Right.
All those things, like why are we still, if you look at something like, just going back to a model like Black Panther, right? Mm-hmm. If they would have pre-sold Black Panther, with that one trailer, Ryan Coogler could have made a fictional trailer. It could have been a VR, it could have been an animated trailer.
Yes.
And the hype that thing got, they could have pre-sold it without the studio and made the same amount of budget they had for that movie. We have to figure out new ways to sort of bring things directly to the consumer, because I'm buying things, I'm sitting there getting a package from delivery every month from something that catches my eye and I'm buying.
Yeah.
Or I'm donating, or I'm screening a movie on Amazon or whatever, or something, you know, digitally, you know, paying for it. You know, there's got to be a way that we can start going direct to consumer without a high cost of entry, you know, and whether that's a event, because I think Black people love events particularly. So I mean, a drive-through, you can go to a parking lot, there could be a circus outside as long as you're in your car.
That's right.
There could be people doing wheelies on the bikes and
yes.
You know.
I think just to add on it, I think the drive-through idea is really brilliant. But maybe just for a young filmmaker who's like, I do have a film and I want to screen it, I don't even have the capital for distribution. Because many times, by the time you're done with your film, you are lucky if you have some distribution money left, you know?
And a lot of us are not business people, so we may not have that part of us.
Right.
Yes.
So, of course, we do need more people of color to plug in into the distribution, the different parts of the channel, you know, of the conveyor belt, you know, like that there are gatekeepers in the corporate segments where they can look at our stories and say, I understand this story is relevant, therefore it needs financing. And then we also need them in the distribution end. But to add back the drive-through story, I was thinking there was this lady in Kenya who did adapt the street lights. So she got organizations to adopt street lights for certain parts of the city. They would pay for the maintenance because the government at that time wasn't quite working. So these private entities would pay for that street light maintenance. And I'm thinking you could get agencies to adopt the drive-through. So like it could be a cell phone company, they could adapt the drive-through. So they pay for the expenses.
Of course.
So at least a filmmaker can now benefit from the profits that are coming through from people paying to watch the film, you know? Yeah, so
that's a good idea. I think also like, I always think about like being very specific about the city that you live in and the culture and the country.
Right.
Because like, you know, in New York City, you have a thing called rooftop films, right?
Yes.
But, you know, rooftops are very important in New York City. You know, it's a way, if you're on a rooftop and there's a big congregation watching a movie on a rooftop, you know, the next rooftop sees it, you know, and sometimes the light will attract people from all over the rooftops because people have rooftop parties.
Oh, yeah.
So there must be a version of that in Kenya, and there must be a version of that in South Africa where people sort of naturally congregate in a certain physical location. And once you start thinking about, okay, how do you bring things to the people directly? You have to start thinking about what those infrastructure, what those cultural and geographical and infrastructure, how those things combine.
Yeah, they do. That definitely is. Culture speaks, you know, so.
And then you find it, you know?
Yeah, creating innovative cultural solutions because the film marketing distribution will morph differently in New York than it will in Nairobi.
Yeah.
So definitely.
You know, I went to Rwanda Film Festival in Kigali with Eric Kabera, and there's a festival in the city, normal, whatever that means. And then afterwards he does what he calls Hillywood. And they take one of these blow-up screens. It's probably, you know, 3 meters by 6 meters or give or take, whatever those dimensions might be. And he literally just drives out to some town, you know, where they have some connection, call somebody who you know lives in that village, call somebody who you know who lives in that town. And you just set up literally on a field in the village square. And he does this for like 10 days. And whoever comes, his is free because the festival's mission, but there's no reason people couldn't take a somewhat similar approach. Find somebody you know who lives away from the city, or in the city for that matter, but lives away from the city in this example, and go there. Those screens are not expensive. There's a bunch of filmmakers with content that they can't get distributed. And there's a bunch of producer types with organizational skills who are underemployed, especially in this moment of the industry slowing down everywhere. So the two of you get together and say, hey, we're going to, in a month, we're going to just start showing it someplace. And somewhere in there, there's room for donation. Somewhere there's room for a little bit of a fee, and just see how it goes and build something of your own. You know?
I mean, there's also like the use of technology, you know, You know, like, you know, obviously there are QR codes and everything is mobile. So you can take over a space and have a sign with a QR code on it, and you flash your phone to, and it goes right to your pay. It charges your phone $5, you know, and it's not even a person. It's just click, and it gives you a thing, and you come in, you know. But I do think we need to take it back to the streets. I think we need to, you know, because eventually the streets always creates culture. You know, eventually the mainstream always finds what's on the street. Yeah. You know, and I think we're doing the opposite as we're all taking meetings with Netflix and Amazon, which is great if you can get to that. But eventually Nike's looking for that kid from the street, you know, in South Africa, or that, you know, that trans actress from Nairobi. They're looking for the new street thing that the kids are doing. So if filmmakers can take that same approach in the cutting edge and do something on at the street level that's cutting edge, the brands are going to eventually find it. You know, but to go to them trying to take meetings, I think you have to be they're always looking for the A consumer kid. They're looking for that kid who's the hottest kid on the street level, you know? So I think we had to start distributing in different ways, you know, on a building, whatever it is, create your hype, you know?
What do you think of this corporate holiday for Juneteenth and things like that?
Meaning not boycotting corporations for Juneteenth?
You know, these corporates are like, oh, we're going to have Juneteenth a national holiday. You know, that's an American thing.
I just think, I mean, personally, okay, great, lovely. But I just feel like that's another Band-Aid. I mean, for what? First of all, Juneteenth I'm from the North, so I never even heard of Juneteenth until like maybe when I went to college in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, I heard it in Atlanta, but I was well into my 30s by then.
I never heard of it because I'm from New York. You know, they don't have, that's not a holiday that we celebrate in the North. Now we do, because it's become popularized. But, you know, I think holidays I understand the message around liberation and joy and those things, but it's still kind of associated with like a slave history. Yeah. Which is it's a history, yes, but I don't know. I'm not mad at it, put it that way, but I'm not like overwhelmed with joy.
I think like Mandla said, I think like Mandla said, it's a way to purchase a ticket and have the person go away. Oh yeah, I bought a ticket to your event. I'm done. I don't have to actually invest in you or give you an equal opportunity. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice time to dance and hang out. I love that. I'll take another holiday of Black joy. Yeah. You know, but it always ends up being beneficial from someone else, it seems.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think it's a start. I think it can be rebranded over time, because when people are being liberated from a system like racism that has been institutionalized for more than 400 years, the first steps of liberation are not going to be accurate, you know? So
say that again? I love that. Wait, say that again? That's beautiful.
What?
The first steps of liberation will not be?
They're not going to be accurate, because we're all trying to figure this thing out. You know, we're like, okay, well, you've given us a holiday, and right now the identity of the African American has always been associated with slavery. And my campaign is that, no, you have a history past slavery, and there's no problem understanding slavery and speaking about it. Yeah, but also connect to before slavery. And there's such a disconnect, like it just has to end at slavery. And I'm like, no, you don't have to even actually know where you belong in Africa. Pick any African country and create a connection with it, you know, because Africans are like that. We traveled back and forth within the continent. There's no tribe that was permanently fixed in a permanently geographic space. Over time, the migration was migration. So I think the way Shawn is saying, we need to go past pain to joy, but not forgetting the pain. You know, the Jews don't forget the Holocaust, but they do celebrate Abraham and all those holidays that they have. So I think it's a beautiful start, but I say maybe the next one the next holidays, how about we create a whole campaign that says, let us find out who we were before slavery, because that feeds into the self-esteem of a creative. If you don't know you came from an intelligent past, you have no confidence standing and challenging the market.
Yeah.
Black Panther was a success as it was because it borrowed culturally from the continent, the costumes and those things. And I feel an African creative lacks so much. Even I lacked so much in my first film because I was imitating so much of the West that's in the Western stories. So
that's usually how we do it in film. Unfortunately,
right.
And it's a distraction because we really have to figure out what Black film is.
Right.
Because it's not just it's very important that we to understand that, you have to understand what African culture is, because I do believe that beyond language and tribe and clan and all these things that are so varied on the continent. Beyond that, there's also I believe there are certain continuities, at least ontologically. There are certain things that African people, it seems to me, worldwide, believe in being, like, and my philosophy has always been that we all believe in this notion of the unseen, We all believe that there's something more than the physical. It's in our art. We always, in our expressions, that was meant to be, or there's always an association with something beyond ourselves in every African culture. And so I think that just like in Japanese film, there's, whether it's Kurosawa or Ozu or the newer Japanese filmmakers, there's always some hierarchy, something about hierarchy, whether it's high and low or it's a samurai film. There's always the Shinto sort of levels of hierarchy in all of their culture, all their films. And it's not aesthetic. The aesthetics change, but the culture is always there. And what we've been chasing recently is this notion of a Black aesthetic, which is false, because one, that can be duplicated and studied and regurgitated back to us, but it cannot understand Black ontological belief. And if we think about having conversations around what is African at the basis, beyond language, beyond the differences, what is something that is a basis of African culture that we can build upon to make an African story or film, or and that's very, very, very big to say that. But I do believe that that's we're moving in the right direction.
We are, and I just think we should give room for, I think we put so much emphasis on the accuracy of it. I'm like, what we're going to build, the next generation is going to build it. So let's explore, make mistakes while exploring what it looks like. What does that story look like? What does the aesthetic look like, because like you just touched on the Asian films, when they come in, they tell their stories. There is tradition. Those subliminal themes add to the aesthetics of how that film looks like,
Exactly.
But an African, but an African American, I'm like, are you plugging into your Africanness, and bring that together with your African American culture and create something? So I feel
we can't help it. We can't help it, honestly, because honestly, there is no American culture without Black culture. So, and just like when you first time someone on the continent saw Black kids in New York breakdancing, they recognize it as their own immediately. There's something about Africanness and African gene and African expressivity that for some reason we recognize as soon as we see it. And I'm sure that Japanese people have a similar expressivity that they recognize. It's like urban culture from New York went around the world for Congolese kids in France, for South African kids in Soweto, for kids in Nairobi, rapping and breakdancing and playing jazz. Those things are African. That's why people recognize it immediately. So we have to find out how to commodify that.
So how do we, so to steer it back towards specifics, because we're trying to concentrate on specifics today, the action steps.
So I got one. I think it's important just because I believe the marketplace is trading on culture. You you trade the culture in a vessel that they understand. So for them who are interested in Africa, BBC did a series on African civilizations, and it's amazing. It's amazing what you can learn from that, what you can see from that. And you know, because writing a film, a movie script, you're not just writing it on surface knowledge. You have to take your creativity deep. So yeah, so you can, it's on YouTube and it's free. You can watch it, and it touches on all civilizations, the Nile civilizations. It touches on the Western African civilizations. And it's amazing how much those civilizations contributed to the current civilizations that we see. So I think it's important for you to see that, or to know that.
I love the idea of rebranding the Juneteenth energy for next year, and to strategize now on how to spin that to something tangible that is beneficial to the industry community.
Yeah,
because the specifics of ideas of you're thinking about, or we could be thinking about, or how can we, like that's an idea, but what's some, I'm just trying to figure out how to put that.
Juneteenth specifically? With Juneteenth specifically?
Well, for the moment, yes, because that is a specific thing, and that larger institutions are making space for.
Right.
So how can we take that interest and turn it into something that next week or next year will be useful to us? And I love the idea.
Activism, because you cannot make people great if their point of reference is pain. You get it? Like if we trace our history to colonialism, to slavery, and that's where we stop at, there's no way we're going to create a great legacy. We have to go beyond that. Acknowledge
so how can we go beyond it? That's right.
Yeah,
so I'm challenging you in this conversation. Give us some specifics that our listeners can act on in some manner, whether it's intellectual or physical. I'm not sure, but
I mean, there's a in South Africa. You can link it specifically in South Africa with what happened on June 16. With the uprising, 1976.
Yes.
Right? The youth of South Africa took up
that's interesting.
and confronted the apartheid system and pretty much, crushed it. Because that spirit was so strong that it's still vibrating to where we are right now. Sure enough, yes, Nelson Mandela and them are the symbol of liberation, but the youth of South Africa showed the youth of the world that, listen, you can be able to bring down a system. I mean, they literally took stones, just like, what's his name? Who's the story? Who's got the stone?
Yeah.
Adam. I mean, David and Goliath.
Yeah. The youth of South Africa did that, and they brought down Goliath, which was the apartheid system, and then obviously that helped. I remember having a conversation with Winnie Mandela. I was preparing to do a film with Kalushi, and she was like, "Why aren't you talking to me?" I was like, "What do you mean?" Sorry, Mama Winnie. She's like, "No, you're forgetting that people like Nelson, Walter, Ahmed Kathrada, all those guys, they were on the Robben Island, they were in prison, so they didn't really do anything. So people like Winnie Mandela and the youth of 76 brought down the system to what we are now, calling the new dispensation, liberated South Africa. And subsequently, I mean, even Nelson Mandela, the whole thing of Free Nelson Mandela started with 3 guys inside a bank in Silverton. They were like, we're going to bring this down. And then, fair enough, less than 10 years, he was out of prison, So I think we can link June that way.
That's a really good example.
That's great.
We were talking about last time. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, in that way, you're connecting the dots, right? And then obviously opportunities are gonna come out. But but we can't make it superficial and make it like something that's distant from us. It's slavery took place here. We think slavery is all shackles. Apartheid was
Completely.
A system of slavery. You know what I mean?
Right.
So similarly, the Arab Spring that took place in Africa and the northern part of the continent, it started here in South Africa with the youth of South Africa encouraging the youth of Libya, the youth of Algeria, and Egypt, and say, when you get back there, tell those old gods it's time for you to move. And fair enough, when they use social media, and Arab Spring took place.
I mean, it's always youth movements, right? I do think that nexus around June 16th is something that's very curious to me. I think that's something that we were talking last on our pre-call. We were talking about possibly creating some type of, festival that wasn't just, networking, more of a place where, we have one every year. We go to some place where we can all get together as creatives and, think about these things, because you also need time and space to think about these things and meet together and know what the next person is doing, and know the resources the next person is bringing to the table. Because as we're talking, there's someone creating a small rental house right now. Bradford has his lens company, Tribe.
Right.
There are things that are happening concurrently, but we do need to have some place that we can all go. And they have Camera Image in Poland. They have, obviously the different film festivals that are, that we know about. But this needs to be sort of, and all the film festivals also have the symposium, and the learning portion of that. I think we need to have, maybe if it's not next year, one of the things that we can start right now is starting to think about, like, is it South Africa on June 16th that we have next year, that we combine sort of a Juneteenth South African liberation.
That's a great idea. That's a great physical manifestation of linking some of those social aspects together. To make
why not? I mean, it's something to work towards. I mean, I'm not good at those things personally. I'm a Gemini and I'm very flighty. So I need people who can work.
Here's something, Shawn, that'll actually interest you. There's a colorist by the name of Ndumiso Mnguni here in South Africa, and we've been researching for a while the whole thing of melanin skin and how camera sensors and even celluloid from the days of Kodak, from the days of Fuji, is still using the research of the 18% gray.
Of course, yes. For skin tone,
and in the digital age with high dynamic range, cameras can see all the way into the far shadows, but they're still using the research that is racially biased towards the Shelley card,
So 18% gray card, which is Caucasian.
So we're doing research right now with the local science and technology, the CSIR, scientists there at the CSIR are helping us to be able to start looking at the display panels, right? And the camera sensors. We had a webinar like this, or should I say a Zoom call like this with the guys at DaVinci Resolve, Blackmagic. And they say, look, our software is still using 18%. In other words, when it comes to our skin tones, what you're seeing in cinema, what Bradford shoots, what Tommy shoots, what any cinematographer shoots, it can look better than it does, like 10 times better, because right now it's being put on a particular part of the sensor, whereas this part of it is not even explored yet, right? So I mean, I'll share this document that we've been working on. Facial recognition.
Even in water, even if you go to the bathroom and they have the when you put your hands under the how often does it take you 4 or 5 times?
It does.
For the infrared sensor to pick up your hands. That's because your hands are dark. And you see some guy walk in with light skin, he comes in and comes right on. And you don't think about that.
Yeah.
those sensors are calibrated for different skin.
So I'm saying 2020 is the year of the inner eye to open, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where we can be able to open up our inner eye
Mm-hmm.
and start seeing spiritual beings, how we can get inside the technology itself. Let us talk to the technology itself. You know what I mean? As Africans in diaspora.
So how do we action item that?
What's that?
How do we make an action item out of that?
Let's 16 next year. Let's come over here and on the farm here. We can have a conference where we start unpacking. How do we get inside the technology itself from as creatives? How do we create an image of ourselves as creatives that we are controlling the entire value chain and to a point where you can patent. You should be able to patent this face here, because very soon films are going to be made from my desktop or from my studio at home. I can get a face like Tom Cruise and put it inside this, and then I don't need to go and hire an actor. I've got my own Tom Cruise who's electronic, and you know what I mean?
I mean, they're doing it now, even in pre-visualization, in previs. That when the bigger action films are already asking people to learn Unreal and Unity and those game engines to start pre-visualizing things. So that's an action item.
That's an action item that we could come over here, and then the outcome of being here is I don't know if we have it for like 5 days, that we come out with a 5-minute film that we're working every single day towards that, creating a film that talks to that. You know what I mean?
So the action item is next year Mandla is hosting it in Joburg, Juneteenth-ish time, which coincides with the Soweto uprising.
I love the notion of making a film.
Got that, Jinna? We'll be there, right?
From the conference itself. I love that notion.
I just wanted to add to that. I love the idea of technology. It's so important because as much as we're talking about liberating the African people or people from African descent, it's not going to work without the social economics part of it. And so if we're going to come up with inventions that are going to make our image look better, we need financing for it. So of course, doing the proposal and approaching, because what Mandla is stating has economic value. If you're able to create a breakthrough technology that allows people of color to have better selfies and tell better films.
Yes.
Because my husband is dark, and when we take pictures, totally different. Like the camera calibrates itself to me, and and we've talked about it and laughed about it. And I thought, look at Africa; it has 1 billion people. So, and America, I think it's 40 million African Americans. Think about the people on the darker shade. That's a whole market.
I mean, Brazil, 80 million.
Not being represented.
Brazil has 80 million. I mean, listen, there's only 10%.
Yeah.
Only 10% of the planet is European.
Listen.
Yeah. So if you did your math, if you did a proposal and said, look, if we are able to break through with this technology, these are the things this is what your ROI, return of investment, looks like. So I think it's something that should be acted on.
So when the company says, hey, we want to support, you say, hey, okay, this is what you can support. Our development of this spin on software that has existed into this other additional, not in place of necessarily, but in addition to, and you decide whichever markets make sense to send it to.
Now, the whole thing it's bigger than just Africans in the diaspora, because it impacts the image of ourselves as a humanity. And if we start saying, listen, these are standards that we are creating of how we want to be, just like Kodak did, Fuji did. This is standards of this is how we want. If we go and watch a film and we see what you go and represent us image-wise, like you did Wesley Snipes in the 90s, we coming after you. You know what I mean? They would just blast light into his face, like, so we can get an exposure, right? Now, if you look at India, India.
The darkest person I've ever seen physically was someone who's South Asian.
From South Asia.
In person, I could
That's
literally, the sun did not reflect from his skin.
Yeah.
Now,
It sucked it.
Yes.
so it's more than just an African.
More just African people, yeah. It's dark-skinned people.
It's dark-skinned
Around the
people, right?
Right.
Yeah, dark-skinned people around the globe.
Once you start expanding it there, then you are opening it up to be able to talk to two communities that are the largest on this planet, right?
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. I mean,
And-
being affected by the, yeah.
Yeah. And now, when you earlier on, I listened. You were talking about the issue of civilizations that are on the continent of Africa and so forth. I'm doing a documentary series on the Mapungubre civilization, which preceded the Great Zimbabwe civilization. And Mapungubre, which was part of the Greater Monomotapa Empire, they were trading with India, Egypt, China, and the Far East way before the Europeans came into the picture.
Right.
The spice trade that took place, the gold trade.
Gold trade.
Yes.
So if we can tap into that, right, with the whole thing that's called BRICS. BRICS is Brazil, South Africa, Russia, India, and China, right? All those countries are together as an economic bloc.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Huge, man.
Once you start thinking that way, I think you need to, once you start focusing yourself on 90% of the planet in terms of a market,
Right.
and you start figuring out ways to
connect with it and get your point across. Yes.
I would just add one more thing specifically.
Yes,
I
please.
would say if I was a young filmmaker,
Specifics
one of the things I would add, I would say, this is off on a different tangent, but one of the things I think is really interesting now is for filmmakers and creators of content is sort of the art world space as well. You know, if you look at the trajectory of Arthur Jaffa, our friend AJ's career, and most of the stuff he's creating is from found source footage that he is creating on his own laptop. Right. You know, and or images that he's taken in the past and he's reappropriating them. You know, and he's at this point he's probably, I mean, I know the last time I talked to him, he sold a piece at Art Basel for $800,000, you know, and this is a series of images. You know,
and he is a cinematographer in the film business. He did Daughters of the Dust many years ago, which is
he did Crooklyn.
Crooklyn, and is now moved more. Currently, is more in the art world, and we're putting.
He won the Berlin. I think it was the Golden Lion. He won from the Biennale. He won the top prize. Yeah. So I mean, but there's also spaces to think about your work. If you're someone who only has a camera in your own mind, and you don't have money, you can start thinking about how you're going to source together images together and how you can distribute them in an interesting way. Me and Bradford and I are working on a project right now, and it's just still images that we're literally collecting around the house. And we're just thinking about an interesting distribution model for museum venues and art venues that we can start thinking about this conversation that we're having. But it's starting to think about like how you can think about making something that can travel. You know, because there's a bigger price tag on that. Yeah. You know, you get a deal with Netflix and you get your check for $50,000 to license your film, and it's distributed to everybody at one time. But if you make something that has to go to the Tate Museum, then it has to go to a museum in South Africa and in Nairobi and in India, and they're paying for that every single time. It's a product, you know? Yeah. So starting to think of yourself in ways to make a physical, how can you distribute it? Just like, what's the brother from England? That does a lot of the 2-channel, 3-channel videos. My name, John Akamfra. Like John Akamfra, those kind of artists that are video artists. Just starting to think of yourself as an artist, not just as a cinematographer who works for other people, or you know, as a director who needs to get something from a network or, you know, a deal. like how are we able to create individual things with with ourselves or one or two people that we can collaborate with and think about that revenue.
And also with that same thing, going to a different income stream. You know, if you're going to exhibit in the museum, that's a different income stream, and it actually works. You know, I think I was in Cape Town last year, and I was at this museum at the waterfront, and they didn't have content at all. You know, and I was like, I mean, could someone exhibit here? What does it take? You know, so yeah. I like what you're saying, that you think of yourself as a video artist, you know, explore different.
It's another thing they can do now.
Yeah,
I think that's
Sean, what Shawn just spoke about there. I mean, I like how we should always connect the dots. You know, tangibles is that's where you can be able to get a corporate, whether it's, you know, I don't know,
exactly. That's what
Hasselblad, or you know, a soft drink company, to be able to support the whole curatorship, because what you and Bradford are doing, you're curating specifics in as far as your work is concerned. You know what I mean? You can be able to tap into what Christian mentioned earlier on, where corporates are looking to be able to support Juneteenth. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, Juneteenth. Yeah, and it's June 16th, right?
June
19th here, June 19th in the US.
June 19th. Got it. Yeah.
So you could do June. You can here it's even extended to what we call Youth Month, right?
But that's interesting, because then you have the notion of 1619.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can play on that. You can play on that
19,
in a graphic, like a T-shirt or something.
And then it's coming from Africa, isn't that? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I actually would keep that day for rebranding it. I would make it like a whole African thing, because we need to tap into the primary African market. That means people from different parts of Africa, the Africans in the diaspora, the Africans in Brazil. If you created a holiday that kind of brings all of us to celebrate something at the same time, it helps unify us, you know, and I believe from there, the other things will be innovated from there. So that if I'm selling my film and I'm talking about African culture, someone in Brazil, that's my immediate culture. He immediately understands what I'm saying, rather than we make our film and you're busy trying to penetrate Western festivals that have no, you know, before they understand that, they're like, oh, really, you know? So that's huge. There's a huge disconnect between African people, and we need that connection to be created. And so, that holiday can help.
But ownership of the space is Christian.
Yes.
Ownership of the space is ownership of the platforms is very, very key.
So let me ask you then, as we segue a little bit towards there's all these IG Live partnerships things, and how do we make use of those versions of support? Some of these companies are like, we want to do a conversation with your people, with your group, with you, with people in your business, and, you know, to put up front more people of color on these platforms. How do we make use of that in a tangible way?
I think the best way to do it is to have a date and an event ready. So we're saying this is going to be June 19th in South Africa. This is what we're doing.
At Mandla's Farm.
And every single person, every time we're on a platform, you know, filmmakers, Black filmmakers, whether it's Sporos, you know, because we have some collectives now that are forming, right? You have Sporos and you have Black filmmakers. I'm going to call later. There's another Black filmmaker collective, you know, so all those things, every time we talk about that date, you know, just like people were talking about the release of Black Panther and the date it was going to be released. It was like all around the world we knew, you know, and we have to make that viral. We have to make, you know, a brand and a date, let's say 1619 or something, whatever. And we say June to celebrate, you know, our connection between the particular African-American diaspora, let's say maybe the African diaspora.
And you know, Ghana is down for this year of return thing that they did last year. That was very successful. That was a
huge brand. It was a huge branding.
Huge.
It worked.
From what I understand is like 200,000 people came in relation to that.
And I heard, the feedback I heard is that it would need to be more centralized.
Of course.
I've heard that there's a lot of parties and people wanted to have more
Jenna,
of a sort of educational centralization.
Right. Jenna, what was you saying? They're not going to be
What?
About the first time.
It's not going to be accurate the first time.
That's right.
So
it's
now,
not, you know, I mean, it's not.
No, we agree.
400 years plus what? How many years of colonization? It's not going to be accurate. You know, you're talking about a kid being freed for the first time. He's going to topple over when he starts walking. So instead of holding, you know, and I hate that. It's like, this is what it was. It has to be this. I'm like, no, I allow that thing to evolve to meet the needs of the generation. So if we're saying the previous generation for Martin Luther really related with slavery, but even he himself understood the connection with Africa. They were Pan-Africanists. So yeah, I think evolve that.
Can I just say the Ghana, yes, sir. So that Ghana thing, and we'll leave that alone, was turned into now Beyond the Return is the way they've gone forward with that campaign.
Right.
And they are interested, you can hit them up on Instagram, I know that, and you can give them a proposal on what you think you can do, would like to do, partner with. I know they are taking proposals on Instagram. You know, you can contact them and then they'll give you the correct email, etc. And they're looking for ways to actually tangibly intersect.
So I like the whole Ghana thing. The only thing I'm like, they're just focused on Ghana. And I'm like, no, open Africa. Like,
I agree. So,
because there's some people who will come to Ghana and they'll be like, I'm not feeling the vibe here. I'm like, yeah, Nairobi is open for you. It's not happening for you. Try Joburg, you know, just like if I come to the 50 states, I might have a better success as an African collaborating with a filmmaker from Atlanta, not New York, you know? So
but I think it's a good start. I think we do Ghana, then we do something in South Africa that we'll do. Then we come to Nairobi. I think you have to switch it up.
I think switch it up. Right.
Yeah,
and open the borders. Like open the borders for collaboration. If it's the Caribbean, hey, why not?
You know, let's not forget that, I mean, Africa is a continent, it's not a country.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, when folks are talking about going to Ghana, it's a specific location, they just think that's the country. And a lot of people are going to choose Ghana because, you know, the slave lodges are still there, and it's a reference point, you know.
It's just a reference point, yeah. It just happens to be like that's a majority, major contribution, but and also the country is fairly stable and you know.
What I was going to say is with regards to, we're not going to get it right the first time because, you know, but we can be able to get as closest to getting it right. I mean, you know, the originators of mathematics, spirituality, and all of that come from this continent. And I think if we can be able to just to rewind and be able to spiritually tap into our ancestors, and they will guide us. There's no way. Our ancestors always guide us, you know. And we reach out into the elders, the elders in the United States, the elders in the North, the elders in the South, East and West, can be able to do something. There are elders that are in Egypt, there are elders that are in Kenya, there are elders that are in Nigeria, Ghana, there are elders that are here. And so I think that's something that's tangible when a Christian that could do.
Well, how do we do, like, maybe it's smaller, maybe it's like, you know, remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but in the 80s, there was a hip hop organization called the Zulu Nation, right? Mm-hmm. And so Zulu Nation always had chapters. Mm-hmm. You know, you had the New York chapter, you had the Atlanta chapter, you had the Los Angeles chapter, and they would all come back to the Bronx or something every year for the National Zulu Nation Conference. Right. So maybe there's a way, maybe there's some type of, maybe we can, from a Black filmmaker's perspective, maybe we can figure out how to chapter it.
Well, so the Full Circle, the Full Circle Festival was planning to work in chapters. So maybe I'm for, like, unless the organization is not really so great. I'm like, if it's already doing what we're thinking of, how about seeing ways to partnering with them and empowering them more? So the Full Circle Festival, they had done the Ghanaian chapter, and I had Boris Koji saying they were looking into the East African chapter as their next thing. So they were looking, they already have that in plan, how they were looking at creating the festival to rotate around Africa, not just as a festival, but also as a social economic platform where investors kind of interchange and out of their innovations come out. So I think they are a platform that we should look into. Full
Circle Festival?
Yeah, I think it is. The one Boris Koje is part of.
Yeah, I don't know Boris, but I know one of his I'll casually say business partners on his Africa efforts. And anybody who got an idea, I can put in front of that guy, and they can kind of help as a possible entry point.
There's also FESPACO. It's an institution that's been there for years. You know, it needs to be capacitated. You know,
right?
So FESPACO has got representatives all over the continent.
Yeah.
And I also feel like we have to be young in this. We have to be youthful. We have to think about names and brandings. You know, I love the name. I love the efforts. But I'm upper 40s. You know, so my generation is done. You know, we're the children of civil rights, and these new kids that we need to be. They're the ones that are going to come in mass. They're the workers. You know, so we have to think about how to engage LGBTQ communities, and obviously in the communities that these young people are really able to gather their spirits. We need to figure out the young route. You know, what's going to get the kids. You know, I just think that
one thing that's
branding,
happening
everything.
One thing that's happening now is Lights Camera Diaspora. We're starting a regular Zoom get together. You know, people are doing these Zoom happy hours and Zoom. We're just starting a regular conversation about collaborating such as this. No particular goal. I mean, introduction. It's like because of the current corona, it happens on Zoom, but in other worlds, it might happen as a dinner party once a month or something like that. And people meet and network, and we begin to help make those connections and help people kind of be one of the places for those connections to start, you know?
Yeah, I think that's I think trying to figure out something on the continent that we can go to, maybe South Africa because of the history, the dates in June. I just think that's an interesting marketing.
It is.
You know, sometimes you have to start with what is the most interesting, catchy spin?
Something that'll catch.
You know, it doesn't always have to align with the whole truth.
Yes.
You know, but what is the most interesting logo? You know, literally.
I mean, that's a powerful connection. We call it a low-hanging fruit. People right now are hyped up about Juneteenth, you know, and then of course we understand what the Soweto uprising was, and they had a narrative about the uprising of apartheid. It wasn't just only South Africa; it's that other African countries participated with them.
Of course.
And that narrative has never been quite shared within South Africa. So I think demystifying that, because it's just the same thing when we're in Kenya and we're Black Lives Matter, people are like, why would you say that? And I'm like, no, the negritude movement, they did participate in releasing us from colonialism. Are we aware of that? How many Africans know that? They don't know that. So that disconnect of how we are connected and how each I don't know how to say it, each African community from wherever they are have paid a price for the freedom of a certain community. That story is not shared, you know? So I knew, and I had to read about it, but it's not what I was taught in history, that the negritude movement presented so many things to the parliament in America to oppose colonialism. And that's one of the reasons why we are free in Africa.
There's so many things. There's so many things.
So George Floyd's death is real to me, because I'm like, this, if I can feel your pain, you know, so that disconnect, you know, I think once we begin telling these stories and telling them in their fullness, it changes how we empathize. It changes the idea of, I really need to connect, and how we can look at collaborative efforts, because we need that collaboration. We need it.
There was more Pan-Africanism in 1910 than there is now.
Yeah.
You know, in the 19-teens, the boys and those guys were Pan-African. Marcus Garvey in the 20s. There was more Pan-African conversation between African countries and Black Americans and Brazilian leaders in the teens than there is now.
So how do we action?
There was no social media.
We create that Soweto. We put that Soweto Juneteenth festival. We make it happen. And I just wanted to say this quote. What's this guy? The Star Wars guy, the Nigerian actor. What's he called again?
John Boyega.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, names. Anywho, he said something. He said, our unity is our superpower.
Absolutely.
And
I had actually thought about showing that video before we started today.
Right. And for me, I'm like, why has our unity been so attacked? You know, as soon as Martin Luther and what's the name? Muhammad Ali, they were like, let's connect with Africa. As soon as that, there was so much attack on them. Like, no, keep these countries separate. Keep Africa regional, so that now, as a South African, I have no identity or any relation with a Kenyan. And I'm like, that's not how we work. Yes, we were tribes. So I think our unity is our superpower, and we should fight for that, because it means, at least if I'm telling a story, if I'm not able to penetrate the Western market, at least I have what? 1.4 or 1.6 billion people that I can sell my content to, that directly understand this culture.
So how do we action item that?
I think one of the things that we put on the table for the 1619, I keep going back to that because I like it.
I like that.
Great. It's great.
If we go back, I think one of the things we put on the table is having specific instruction on doing business in the film business and on the continent. You know, how does it work structurally? We talked about it for a second, Jinna, last time.
Yeah, the Pan-African collaborations, you know.
How do we talk about, how do we get visas, work visas? How do you engage, you know, what is it structurally, strategically, governmentally, what are the labor opportunities? I know your organization, Christian, is training people for labor, but it's like, how do we close all those things? Because I would love to make a film. I mean, I've made films there. You know
welcome.
On the continent, yeah.
Welcome to Kenya. You can make your film here.
Yeah.
So, and for a fraction of the budget, you see, that's what I'm saying. And so, of course, so the one way you can, if you want to know, you want to collaborate with a Kenyan filmmaker. So you can look into, I'm sure Christian has a directory of Kenyan directors who are more legit. Yeah. So using that way of connecting is a much safer way. And then of course you have to do your due diligence to vet the person you're working with. But if you check at Kenya Film Commission, it has all that information, what your work permits look like, you know. And also they are looking into implementing the tax rebate system where you get some money back. South Africa is way ahead of us. Of course, they have that already working. So those are countries. Ghana, of course, also is really open to that, to the Pan-African collaborations. So if you look into like just starting with those 3 countries and Nigeria, you should be able to get a collaborative partner, and you should be able to do your film with almost half your budget, you know, and paying people great wages. I'm not talking about now coming and exploiting the talent. Yeah.
What else? People in all those countries to connect you with.
Say it again.
I have people in all those countries to connect viewers with. In Nairobi, in Accra, in Lagos, in Joburg, for sure.
I just want to add that yesterday I had a conversation with Christian and with a gentleman by the name of Preston Holmes.
Yes.
And what's good is that if you can be able to link, you know, a powerhouse like Preston Holmes with a producer here in Africa, whether they're in Kenya, in South Africa, or Nigeria, then immediately you're given confidence into a funder who might be coming out of Europe or out of the United States. You know what I mean? And you can be able to tap into the rebate system here in South Africa, right?
Right.
That's two. Number three, I was saying to Christian and to Preston yesterday that if you look at the good, the bad, and the ugly, A Fistful of Dollars, and all those spaghetti westerns, they were not shot in the United States. They were shot in Spain, and part was shot in like Italy. Now in Spain, those places where those films were shot there are cultural, historic sites where people come and visit from all over the world. Oh, it was shot over here. Now those films were made for like $1 million, you know, $3 million. You know, nobody knew who Clint Eastwood was. And then obviously they were sold to the studios and they made millions and millions of dollars. You know, so if we start thinking culturally how to write narratives that can be able to travel for the markets in Europe or in the US, but shot here. So you're bringing foreign direct investment in here, right? You're accessing the rebate, right, that the DTI has. You're leaving behind skill set, right? And at the same time, you're branding this entire movement so films can be done on the continent and at a high standards and they can travel, right?
Right, and to add on that, you're able to expound your narrative. So it's not just stuck within the cities of America. Is that, you know, how they can trace back their history to Ireland if they're an Irish American. As an African American, you can create a story that goes beyond Atlanta and says, how do I as a person go all the way to Ghana, to Ethiopia, you know? And it's richer because now you're dealing with a wider range of sets, you know, magnificent sets and talents and accents and music. And all that is adding to how your picture looks. It's just adding to the aesthetic value of your picture, plus also adding to the markets that you can woo to really support your film.
And plus people are very curious, I think. I think no one's really seen, I mean, I've seen a few like really interesting urban films in Nairobi. The one I'm thinking in particular, I can't think of the name, but I was very curious to see, you know, this inner city of Nairobi. And but I also think that's just a tangible thing, Christian, is that as we start thinking about start crafting these screenplays, they have to be small. In scope. You know, how many times people come to me, I've heard people come to me and say, yeah, I want to make a film about Mansa Musa. I'm like, really? Like, okay, that's a $300 million movie.
That's
know?
right.
And so if it's a story about Mansa Musa, it needs to be about him and his wife.
Right.
In one home. In a cave.
In one corner of one home.
In one town. You know, but we need to start thinking about Nairobi, you know, in these cities that have, what is a small love story in Nairobi? You know, you're going to have this breadth of texture and color and culture because one, as a foreigner, I know when I'm on the continent, I'm noticing things, textures and colors that sometimes local cinematographers don't notice.
For example, I mean, the white people are even tapping into it before the African American. They do The White Maasai, which is a movie about a white lady who falls in love with a Maasai. You know,
yeah, that's very typical, though.
Right, but I'm just saying, how about an African American who connects to the Maasai, the blues, and what the Maasai sing? I mean, it's not far off. You know what I'm saying? It's not.
This needs to be small in terms of we have to start writing our stories to our budget.
Yeah, of course, and that you can write to your budget. I can show you how to do it.
I tell people all the time, there's this film on Netflix that I love, and I never remember the name, but it's a French film, and it's 4 couples having dinner in one flat. Not a big flat, not like one little flat, but it's great relationship issues, history. They've known each other a long time. There's sexual issues between them. There's history. It's great, and it's completely doable right now. And I thought, okay, so in that film, they never even go out the flat. They don't even show the front of the building. And we could shoot that anywhere in the world, pretty much what's affordable right now in most filmmakers, account savings, et cetera. It doesn't take a whole lot to actually get the basic things.
Exactly. One of my favorite films of all time, any director, any genre, any culture, is Usam Semben's film about the cart. The guy, I can't think of the name of it, but he has his cart, and he's a cart driver, and it's just a story about this one day in the life of this cart driver and all the shenanigans he has to go through. Yeah. And it's a short film; it's about 30 minutes, but that could be a feature easily. And it's like it gives you such a breadth of
understanding
what is happening in Dakar at that time. Semben is from Senegal, right?
Semben, he's from Senegal.
So it was in Dakar. But it was like you saw the classism, you saw the colonialism, you saw the whole history.
Wow, I need to watch that.
All through this one cart driver who has to go take this one guy into the rich neighborhood, the colonial neighborhood, and where he lives. And you see a whole thing in one character, one pushcart guy, and a few people he interacts with. He must have made that movie for $10.
That's right.
But it's one of the most impactful.
And now it could be done for even less.
Right.
I mean, what you're saying, Shawn, is great because, one of the things that could be driven for younger filmmakers to do is remakes of classics like that.
Yeah,
in a contemporary setting, because they would resonate with an audience already. You know what I mean?
That's a fascinating idea, right?
Yeah, because I mean, how many times is Hollywood rebooting this, doing that? What stops us from being able to go to Sembene, Jibril Job Mabeti, and
I mean, Tuki Buki would be a crazy film, a road story now, modern, with like some cool.
Yeah. But you see, and the issues are still the same. It hasn't quite matched,
Right.
The social issues are the same.
Yeah. So that's also something that's tangible to do.
Right. I think also, I mean, it's not African, but Room, the one of this kid who
that's a great movie.
I mean, that was amazing. I was like, what, in one location,
But the drama
was film is that?
Room. The movie Room is called Room.
And who did that? Did somebody put that in the notes?
I don't know the name of the film.
I don't know. But it's about this kid who the mother was taken captive by the rapist, and so they have this small shed where this kid is growing up in. It's amazing, the psychological, I mean, it's amazing. It's really well done.
So one of the things that's also happening now, if I could shift towards, is these whole databases of Black people in the industry who quote unquote did not exist previously, right?
Yay.
And what do we do with that? So Shawn and I are members of a group called Explorers, which is can be found on Instagram at Explorers, SPORAS. Was it Spores Co? Let me make sure, because I think it's Spores Co on Instagram. And it's a really great thing, and it's got folks from the continent, it's got folks from Europe, from England, there's a few Asian folks on as well, though I'm not sure where they're actually from, but there's many different countries represented.
It's Spores Co.
Spores Co. SPORA.
Spores Collective.
ORASCO on Instagram. And so what do we do with these databases? I see some people that are just listing them open for the public to absorb, and then some are more through some portal or some effort to access that group of people. I'm really curious how we monetize or make use of all these groups. And then those groups, the definition of them is a question as well. Like, what makes people of color in this modern age? How do we action item their usefulness?
I don't know. You can create an app.
Youth has to. I mean, I think Jinna would be the best person.
This is that film, by the way, guys. It's Boredom Sadet.
I gotta check it out.
Yeah.
Did you put the name on the thing?
I don't know how to. I'm so bad at that.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll take care of that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we'll take care of that.
Wave.
Yeah, we'll take care of that. Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm looking around, I'm like, you know, I think early 90s, my first union feature as a gaffer. And so I don't know why I'm on the list now all of a sudden, you know, like what does that mean? Like this is a version of, we didn't know you were there and now we know. So we as people of color, and this is a variety of people, Latin, Latinx, I'm not even sure how many variations of that term there are now. But all these people, you know, half of us have been here.
Right.
So we don't want to say no, don't add me to that list. Don't want to say no, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to be on your IG live. But how do we make it useful? You know, like I think one idea is, okay, yes, put us out there, and if in something that is substantial advertising, and then it's on me to spin that into my next plan. You know,
Right.
getting that larger platform. I think we have to ask ourselves a question of, is that what we're saying on there, how we're identifying ourselves, what our long-term agreement is with some of these organizations that want to feature us more. What is our long-term agreement or understanding with that organization that brings us more substantial benefits? You know, so if we're doing like one of our group is doing some talks with the BSC, British Society of Cinematographers, in the near future. So I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. Hopefully we will have a long-term relationship that will allow members to elevate or to get more exposure, to get more work opportunities, as opposed to a one-time thing, you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
Christian,
Yes, sir.
here's something that, you know, with regards to 1619,
Yes.
right? You mentioned something about the BSC, you know, the ASC and them are there and so forth. Now, and as far as in Africa is concerned, in South Africa, there's the SASC and all of that. But Africa is bigger than all those organizations put together as a people in the diaspora.
Yes.
And there's a group that we have here as well, which obviously you are on, the camera group here.
Yes.
And you recall, I put this out there, it must have been maybe a year, 2 years ago. So why don't we have even if it's just 1 or 2 awards where we invite a Bradford Young, you know, to come to South Africa, or AJ, or, you know,
Yeah.
Dan, I don't know, is Dam still around? I don't know if he's still around.
Yeah. He's killing in Nigeria. Yeah. Killing.
But you do, even Shawn Peters. Shawn Peters is right there. You know, we do 3 awards, 3, maybe even 2, like 3 awards that you could do one that's a lifetime thing, you know, in emerging young cinematographer. We even get Bill Dale or something like that to come to South Africa. We just come here in 1690. We just want to honor Black excellence in as far as cinematography or creativity is concerned. We come up with our own, I don't know, award, whatever you want to call it. But but you're doing, and then you are using resources from your mineral resources here. I can get sponsorships from the Chamber of Mines or from many of these guys, you know, to add its platinum. There's, you know, we can go to the platinum mine here in South Africa.
Yes.
Or to the, you know, to donate that. So there's an award that Africans are giving to each other. We even call it, I don't know, the TAR Award or the Jehudi Award for best cinematography in treating.
What was that?
Call it the Kemet Award. That's what
Kemet
Africa was called before Africa.
The creative, the Kemet Creative Awards or something like that. You know what I mean? And then we do that. That next year, and we, you know, it's very niche. It's very focused.
Yeah.
And it's very exclusive. Right?
Now that's an ask that I think makes good sense in the spirit of action items, right? It makes good sense for some companies to fund, okay, just pay for the flight and the hotel.
Yeah.
Now the thing is underway, and now we have a momentum that makes that idea actually happen.
Yeah, so we stop these hashtags. Oscars is so white, you know. I mean, I just feel we need to create our own platforms, you know, and have people who vet us. There's no problem if they acknowledge our work, but we're not dependent on that as the only way of celebrating who we are or our progress, you know. Hollywood independently works outside Hollywood and is still a great success.
So Shawn, you had previously in our previous conversations mentioned the Afro-punk model for film and TV.
I really I think it's just interesting, more of a franchise model, you know. It's just more like this is a brand. I think that's why I'm saying branding is crucial. What you call it has to be very youthful. I think a lot of times, unfortunately, young people don't associate with the same things like some of the antiquity expression.
Nobody wants their parents' music.
They don't talk about the cultural things that we don't. If it's something that's linked too directly to culture, they get turned off by that. You know, they want something that is like sort of, I don't know, I'm speaking as an old person, but you know, I'm very, my friendships are all very youthful. And it seems like their curiosity is something that needs to just be sort of, you know, obviously they're very interested in Blackness right now. That's the thing, globally, you know, and sort of, so just thinking of like, Afropunk is a good brand because it has that, it has whatever you think about the festival is irrelevant, but because it has Afro and it has punk, you know? So it has like this brand of like DIY, it has a brand of youth culture, it has a brand of fashion, you know, it's like things that, there's so many things that we as filmmakers, like you said before, Jinna, you know, a lot of filmmakers we're still respectability filmmaking, you know, we're still making films that we think can be respectable in the European pantheon, you know, where, you know, just as long as it's technically respectable, we're happy, you know, and so we have to be, you know, I don't think the kids care about that anymore. They want to tell, you know, if you look at Random Acts of Flyness, or if you look at, you know, what AJ is doing, these people are, they're decimating film language, and the way kids are consuming things it's faster and it's more, you know, they're all over the place. It's not this sort of beginning, middle, end, you know, first act, second act, third act. Very European model. It's different now, you know.
Yeah, you know, the other day I was going to the kitchen from my room and I saw my son. Is the TV screen is there. It's on the wall, and then he's got the laptop in front of him, and he's got his phone in front of him. I said, "How in the world are you doing all those things at the same time?" So over here I'm doing this. Over here I'm talking to my friends, and then we are talking about what I'm watching. And we are discussing what's on, you know. I said, whoa, all of that is happening at the same time. He says, yeah, don't forget now, I can pause what I'm watching. You know? So control, you know, now the consumer has control of what they are consuming, you know. So and young people, obviously, I mean, that in and of itself could be a thing when you talk about scene 16, 19 next year is to be able to have young people come and present how they consume content and what
that's huge. I have to get that. That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also good. To allow them to, I mean, to allow the different age segments to interpret what this is to them. What is that 16, 19 to them? And then you actually get to have a feel of how they are looking at this medium, you know. So yeah, I think it's interesting.
Christian was working on a film in Singapore where all these guys were playing against each other.
Yes.
In a stadium, something like that. They were playing.
Esports. Esports competition.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Now imagine you take 16, 19 and you let it happen here, and then you invite something like that where these guys are coming to play. I don't know. I mean, you whatever games that they could be playing. It could be NBA. They could be playing a game here amongst each other here, where their heroes are, you know, the Michael Jordans of the world, the I don't know, the LeBron James of the world, and all of that. You know, but they're playing here amongst themselves as young people. You know what I mean? And you get EA to sponsor 1619.
Yes. Yeah.
We're gonna get the world's best PS5, because PS5 is coming out soon, right? We're gonna get the best PS5 players to come and play a match, a 3-day basketball marathon, and then they're gonna get the best kid who does it. They're gonna get whatever, you know what I mean? Yes. And it's just, you know, obviously it's young black youth, you know what I mean? And we do it here. It's just part of 1619. Yeah. Sony will throw a lot of PS5s at us to say, hey, let it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
I think also keep in mind too that this generation has, one of the things I was talking with Rada, my friend, you know Rada Blank. She's the sister of One Sundance, Best Director this year. She's one of my best friends, and so we were just talking about, we always talk about films, and we always analyze black film and black content in general. And we're like, wow, there's been such a long history of, I mean, I would talk specifically to the African-American experience because that's what we know, but I feel like it's every black filmmaker diasporally, but we tend to want to educate in our films. You know, it's like we have this didactic, it's always like this, we need, films for us are our platform for education a lot of times, you know? And I feel like this is the wrong, these kids, where we have to understand is the new generation has access to all information. What they don't have access to is truth and feeling. Yes. You know, so what they're looking for is to be transported into an experience that they cannot Google. They can Google the fact that the Messiah lived on blah, 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 blah. Or they can Google about this and this and other, some specific African history moment. That's something that's searchable. They have access to all of that, and that's not really important to them. As far as the kids I talk to, what's important is that we create media experiences that give them a visceral understanding of a truth that goes beyond what they can learn on the internet. You know, something so specific and emotional. Yeah. I don't even know if that's something that even needs to be said. I'm just saying that, you know, we have to be, you know.
Yeah, it's true, but it goes back to the whole thing. It's a post-traumatic syndrome. If you have been in colonialism or in apartheid or in what do you call them, the segregation laws, your first reaction as a creative is you're trying to share the truth.
Of course.
So yes. From that. And of course, going forward, like we say, we evolve again. Now we have shared statistics in our films. Maybe now we're in the room for dreaming, we're in the stage for dreaming, storytelling, but it's true. The younger generation just want a good story. And if you tell a good story, you get your hearts. Yeah.
I want to add a comment to everybody out there.
We're gonna introduce you first, Terrell.
Oh, welcome.
Ready to go.
What's up, Terrell?
Terrell
What's
is
up,
a
everybody?
photographer in our circle here in LA.
Okay.
Welcome. He's got a little comment as a participant. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I have a question. I mean, well, not a question, but I have a statement that goes along with what Shawn Peters was saying. I like the idea about the universal Zulu nation. I think, Shawn, what we can do to bring in the young people, because I'm the same age. I'm part of the hip hop culture, and I'm 43. I'll be 44, but my son is going to be 21 next week. But I think we need to bring in people that are the tastemakers, people that are part of the culture that are that can push the envelope, that have something to say, like dope rappers, conscious rappers, the Talib Kweli's, the Planet Asians, the people, you know, the young generation. I got access and ties to those youngsters that my partner Planet Asia just shot a music video in Kenya, and he's walking through the tribe, and it's shit, I'm sorry, it's dope as hell. And it's like, if we had more access, and maybe we could bring a training ground to young black filmmakers to be like, yo, we can put you up in this hotel, you come to 1619, and then you put them, you give them an African experience where they can get with local, I mean, they can do their, maybe like a short film, but then at the same time, they can, you know, learn about the environment. Because I've never been to Africa, but we always talk black consciousness, Mansa Musa, and to let you guys know about that Mansa Musa. There's a movie that's already being
I heard that.
Yeah, that's being produced.
Yeah.
I heard.
Michael B. Jordan and them.
Yeah, but
Michael
even
B.
before
Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan, there was somebody else. I think Bob Richardson was scheduled to shoot it, but I think it fell off. There was another black writer even before Michael B. Jordan. I was trying to find it on IMDb before I came on, but I think they might have scrapped it or took it off. But anyway, I think if we could just bring in the tastemakers or the young conscious, or we could just get the hip hop culture involved, people that push the envelope, the tastemakers, man, I think that would be something beneficial for the youngsters, because they're out there. The young people want to do it, but you just got to find the Joey Badasses, the people to push the idea.
You see, now what you're saying is exactly what I went to school in Atlanta at the AU Center, right?
Oh, me too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I was
I don't like either of you. That's
I was
not
at
right.
Morehouse, yeah.
Oh no.
She might have been there at the same time.
Yeah, probably. What used to happen there, you know, you would have the likes of Tribe Called Quest and so forth come and perform there, but there was this community of being able to have access to people like Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Cress Welsing, and Dr. Joseph Ben, and these were elders that you were interacting with at the age of, 18, 19.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why when you listen to some of the lyrics from the whole Zulu Nation movement, is that these guys were interacting with excellent thinkers of the time, our excellent thinkers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So what you're saying is right on point, and with technology that's here right now, I mean, Christian, maybe the thing to do is to have a session like this where we kind of brainstorm the whole ethos of what 1619 is about, but you have rappers and so forth, people like Talib Kweli, I don't know, what's the fellow's name that did Black Panther? My son's laughing.
Kendrick,
the director.
Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick.
He's there in LA, you know what I mean? So if you start connecting those kinds of guys so that their lyrics and their music talks to that, you're reaching millions of people. You even cross over.
Okay, so
other communities.
So in the spirit of being specific and action item and effective, right? Babu from Pan African Film Festival used to be in the Black Panther group, and his thing was when they were younger in the Black Panther-ish era in LA, all the different groups would meet semi-regular to discuss strategy. And it's sort of like what you're talking about, Mandla, where, let's say we want to do this thing and we want to progress an interest as people of color, as Black people, as Africans, as Americans, whatever the interest is, they all overlap, right? Mm-hmm. And so they would meet in his area, like the lawyers group would meet with the Black press group, would meet with the Black Panthers group, would meet with the education teachers and the police folks who were down with the cause, and blah, blah, blah. They would have regular strategy meeting. And that's one of the things that we need to do, because we can't answer anything particular here and now in this one call, or,
Have task teams that report and You know what I mean?
I would suggest though that we get,
for goodness sakes, build pyramids.
Yeah, I do think in going to strategy though, I think it might be smart to, if we can bag one influencer, like Terrell said, even if it's not a rapper, maybe it's like we just bag Ava DuVernay. Right. We bag one influencer who's like, I know like maybe Blitz is Ghanaian, his deal is through Ava and Array. Maybe we invite Blitz into this conversation and say, let's
Akon,
try to get.
He's already on the continent. Akon, he's already on the continent, isn't he?
Or Akon. Yeah, maybe we do like an Akon, but I like what Terrell's saying, like someone who's like the Kendrick would be huge, but maybe just someone on the stature of like an Ava DuVernay or a Ryan Coogler, even if it's like Ryan, who did Black Man, who's wanting to do more on the continent, right? That he's been talking about. Maybe one person that we can say, we start small, we have one person that we're going to engage that's going to be there. Right.
I think you should bring someone from the hip hop culture though, at least one person from the movie. And I got access to Talib, so if you need to holler at Talib, I can get to him.
He our age, Terrell. We need somebody young, man.
That's
That's
a,
why I ain't.
But you know what? No. But you need somebody dope. Though.
But Talib
You know what I'm
knows
saying?
somebody. Talib knows somebody.
I know. I'm just
Talib
all
knows
about the youth.
somebody
I just feel like our generation should, we just let the youth speak sometimes, man. I just feel
Then
like,
we grabbed Joey Badass. So we dropped
Joey
That's
Badass.
that's exactly where the challenge is, guys. It's because we don't connect the dots. You know what I mean? This whole thing is a conveyor belt. You hear me? So on this conveyor belt, you're going to have cats that are 75 years old. You're going to have kids that are 45 years old. You're going to have guys that are 21 years old. You're going to have my son who's 10 years old who comes in and out and tells me this is what you must do. So it's a conveyor belt. Do you understand? So on that conveyor belt, there's a lot of wisdom. So
yeah, and I think you have to listen to all of it. All of it matters. Yeah.
I agree.
For it to have impact.
Yeah.
So Terrell has Talib Kweli contact. That's one action item that someone could take, right? And trying to think about the action items, the main thing is the strategy, because today that's one idea. But as soon as we wake up tomorrow, you're like, oh yeah, maybe we should rethink that, or we need time to develop it. So I'm really interested in structuring ongoing conversations about the film industry and how we can progress the cause, because that person who's at the corporate who's giving away money, make themselves feel better or to actually genuinely be helpful. Either way, it's cool. We want to be able to put that to use, and it takes more than one call, to figure that out. So that's where I'm saying, in terms of like lights, camera, diaspora, we're doing this, I think it's going to be monthly. Just Zoom, get together, talk, chop it up, and see what comes from that. So it's an intellectual sort of chit-chat conversation.
But I do feel like the outcome should be a tangible product too. I like the idea that Jinna, I'm not sure if it was Jinna or Madeleine that said we should make a film.
Pan-African collaborations. I mean, this thing should touch everything. It shouldn't just be film. I mean, you can have the hip hop people, you can have the technology and innovation people. We need them because right now art is being consumed through these platforms of technology. So we need to pull them there, And then also I like the idea of nutrition, because we're not farming and feeding ourselves our own food. I don't know.
I would just disagree a little bit, Jinna, because once you start going into too many things.
It's not too many things. It's just you create an experience,
Wait, what did you say? What did you say?
You create an experience.
What was your slogan?
An experience.
You can't get it right the first time.
No. You create an experience. And part of people watching films and doing all that is they need to eat. So how about
you have to have food. It's
so important. Healthy food.
What was I going to say though? I was talking about what I was really trying to say though. I think it'd be nice to, because I'll give you an example. When I first worked with Blitz, wasn't the first time, but Blitz, myself, and Terrence did a film in Ghana, a short film, right? And we literally did it as a collective. It was like we wrote it on the plane on the way there. Wow. And we were in the seats talking about basic general theme, and then we had an 8-hour flight. So on that 8-hour flight, we basically wrote the film. And then we got there and we sourced the actors and we made the film, right? But it was with no money, it was just, we did it. We wanted to make something in Ghana. We flew to Ghana.
Oh, nice.
I think Judith Adu at that time was in the stock market in Ghana. Judith? Judith gave us some money. I think she gave us a couple of grand. And we made the movie with a 5D. And it's, but I think it might be interesting if we do 1619, like what if there was a group of people who wrote a screenplay while we're there?
For sure.
And then we brought some equipment and we made a film, like we made an actual product that was, and it could be whatever length, it doesn't have to be, for me, we should just make a feature, I don't care. Why not? We go there and we make a feature in 10 days.
Yeah, you can do it.
Simple story,
10 days.
10 days. We have 10 days to make this feature. Simple story. We all come up. We get submissions and we read them by committee. We decide on the story and we make it in 10 days.
Yeah. Now that's what I was saying to Preston and Christian yesterday. To say, you know, if you can be able to have people have submissions of what they would like to have done, and perhaps at this 16, 19, 3 or 5 day event, they either come and read their screenplays to an audience and get feedback. They either come and make a film that's 5 minutes long, whatever. It's like a quote unquote market of Black excellence in as far as cinema is concerned. They are selling, I mean, inviting people who are buyers, Christian, would be even great. People who are like, who are buying for their platforms, who want to be able to get proper quality African content. You know what I mean? So one of the things that I did, I'm working on, well, right?
So we can see, yes.
Yeah.
I want one of those shirts, man. How do I get the shirt? Yeah, you gotta send me one. I'll buy it. Just let me. I get it. Dope.
All right, no problem. What I did is and believe it or not, I looked at what Tyler Perry did. I said, hold on a second. This guy took his scripts that he was doing as theater, and then took that material and then made into cinema, you know. And so I had a live audience in a theater, and then we read a script that had been already approved by the National Film and Video Foundation here, ready to go into production. But the feedback I got from a live audience was amazing.
Of course.
It was amazing because folks were like, nah, that didn't feel, you know, tense. And that doesn't feel like a thriller. Make that, you know, do this, do that. And then, hey, believe it or not, that script now is being made as an original film with a major platform.
I love that.
So it's those are kinds of things that can happen here. You know what I mean? It's 1619. Bring your script. Let us help you. You just borrow from what Sundance Institute is doing, you know, and you just spin it and you do it here on the continent.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to make something with no titles, man. Like literally, I don't care who's cinematographer, director. It's a collective, yeah. And it's no. You literally the credit says 1619 Collective. That's it.
Yeah,
that's the whole credit.
That's right. And Shawn is going to lead the collective, right, Shawn?
Huh?
Shawn is agreeing to lead the collective.
Not only to lead the collective, but I can be a part of it.
I thought I heard you say you were going to lead it. Oh, okay. Sorry. My bad. We need.
Great idea. I want to do it like I.
Yeah. So okay. One of the things about the whole conversation, the Caribbean was mentioned briefly, but I want to just talk about that for a second more. We also have a group of countries across the Caribbean that is interested in content from people of color
right.
and is underserved, right?
Right, absolutely.
And a few of them are starting to really play in Nigeria, but they're also looking to expand. I've got a interest in how to collaborate and how to bring them into the circle as well, because the cultural content is relevant there as well in both directions. You know, I've got a guy named Mark Walton who is a TV exec, who's heavy in that world. So if anybody listening is interested in the Caribbean and connecting them, I'd be glad to do that. And then a friend of mine hit me up recently about a studio that some folks in the Bahamas are trying to build.
Nice.
Yeah, and so if there's a place to play in that world as well, you can hit me up about that, you know. But I would love to hear you all's thoughts about the Caribbean and how we can invite them into the conversation.
You're welcome.
Look, Christian, yes. Again, FESPACO. It's a resource. FESPACO has members in the Caribbean, in the United States, you know, the entire African diaspora. You know?
So so be more specific. Help us be more specific.
Here's what I'll do. Locally here, we've got the IBFC, the Independent Black Filmmakers Collective, and Suleiman Ramadan is a member. Yes. Obviously, he's a member within FESPACO, so I can talk to him, then we'll connect so that he can be able to, you know, assist in reaching in Caribbean, on the continent, and stuff, and then in Europe as well.
And next year, when we do the 1619, we can invite them to come on board, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
So Ramadan is he's got contact with all those cats. Yeah. So there's, and then obviously, because we focusing on young people, there are youth chapters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking to try to like bullet point stuff that we think we can act on. Anybody got other bullet points you think that we definitely need to be acting on?
Say it again.
Bullet points on action items that maybe we haven't mentioned yet.
Branding of 1619.
Say that again, sir.
The branding, the logo for 1619, so that when we leave here, it's in here. So somebody.
Yes, but I'm thinking more general in terms of like for participants who are listening, action items of ways to move through the industry in this day and age that we think can advance our cause.
I can have one, especially with the COVID situation where a lot of productions have slowed down on work. It's just a practical thing. I think look into ways to sustain yourself that might not be directly connected with your creativity. You know what I'm saying? Like if you need to start a small kitchen farm, because if you're hustling for everything, it makes it very hard for you to focus on your creativity. But if you're smart and maybe you have a few plants that you can kind of harvest from, it still gives you a little bit of time and resources to kind of plug into your creativity. So it's just a survival tip.
Yeah. Did you say a small kitchen farm?
Yeah, a small kitchen farm, or even a balcony, or even if you put just a few plants on a pot, it just changes. It changes your expenditure.
Yeah, it also changes your perspective on being dependent on the phone ringing.
Yeah.
Which is really important.
That's true.
I
would say something that's tangible, Christian, would be a skill that I think, especially for cinematographers, I'll speak to that directly. I think they should really be trying to learn virtual production, and what that means.
Yes.
Dig into virtual production, dig into how to do. They're even, in terms of like, they're even like projectors now. Used to virtual production, they would have these big LED walls, where you'd film reality, these sort of environments, live motion environments that are on LED walls. But now they have like these short throw projectors now, where they're 1 foot away from the wall, but they can project on a big surface.
Yeah. Right.
So people are doing that now to create virtual production studios on a low budget. I think those projectors are $5,000 or something like that. So just thinking about like what you can do. I know I've been getting, most of my friends who are working right now are people who are doing virtual production, people who are programming in Unity, people who understand these sort of Unreal and Unity environments that are creating more virtual, productions. Yeah. So if I had the energy and the mind and was young, that's what I'd be trying to learn.
I actually just signed on to do one for that purpose, to learn. It's a short film, and I'm the DP, and the purpose is to then learn what the virtual production is. And I've already learned 2 things. vMix is big in that space in some people's worlds. And OBS is an open platform version that is free and is really useful in that world as well. They're sort of leading partners in how to manage some of that for some people, And so, yeah, and point of fact, vMix has a free trial for like 60 days, all features fully operational for those who want to learn more of that.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, vMix. I'll put the website in the link. But yeah, okay. So we're at 2 hours, which is, I think, sufficient. Unless you have specific things you want to add that you think are action items we could act on. I'll mention 1 or 2 more while you're thinking about that. Jenna and I were talking before, and she was talking about this Vogue challenge, and I was like, and I think she suggested the Ebony magazine version or something.
Yeah, which was really, it was really sad for me because I'm like, Vogue for the longest time has never cared about people of African descent, you know. And I remember as a young kid getting to know about the R&B artists, the African American artists from Ebony. Those magazines were highly prized, you know. And it's just that idea of the white gaze, like they have to say yes to us for us to appreciate who we are, you know. And sometimes at the expense of us not consuming our own platforms, you know. So yeah,
So what's the action? So what's the action?
Ebony challenge.
Yes.
I can give on that.
And in the industry, there's value. I'm paraphrasing now because I don't know how this could, I don't know how it should work, but you know, ASC does magazine covers, right? Bradford was on one recently. How do we self-promote our members in this day and age where people are saying, oh, we can't find you? Yeah.
So maybe the fast way to make even people aware, because I didn't even know there was a magazine like that, is to create like a, you know, because what happened when the people did the Instagram channel challenge is that they were made aware about the Vogue magazine. So maybe we should flip it as a challenge on the internet that drives people to know about the existence of the magazine.
That would be good.
Yeah. You can put it there, please, the name of the magazine again.
Which one? American Cinematographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Drum magazine, which was coming from South Africa. That's the only way we kind of got to know positive images of African people, you know.
Drum, yeah. There's one in England too, I remember I loved.
I know, I mean, Drum did such a good job in presenting the dignity of African people. Wonderful.
So that social media campaign could be very useful for building awareness of that female cinematographer,
right?
Whatever city, you know, and a little bit of graphics, like Shawn said, a little bit of graphics, a little bit of youth edge to it, you know, and trying to get that going would be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
This is a magazine that what's the name of it?
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, I know of it.
I didn't get my copy. You got your copy all the way in South Africa. I haven't got mine.
Yeah.
And I see Brad every day.
It's still distributed. I used to read it in film school.
Nice. Yeah.
Shawn, I just want to, Shawn, I would like to talk to you and Bradford about the idea of a rental house, a Black-owned rental house that can be able to service major productions that are coming here. I think that's one of the things that, you know, those are some of the tangible things that we could do amongst ourselves from a business to business standpoint. And you know, it's wide open for us to enter these spaces. And Epps, you were saying that a friend of yours has just joined in with a lighting company or something?
A rental, I think.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought earlier on.
I'm sure I said something. I'm not sure which point.
Oh, okay.
But I will say, Lights Camera Diaspora, we're involved in the equipment thing as well in terms of connecting the content vendors from this side. You know,
is there like on the major vendor side? I'm assuming there's like an ARRI or a Panavision offices there.
There's an ARRI.
There's Panavision, you know, but all these companies have caught cancer now, you know, because the policy here is that for major productions to be able to access the rebate, you got to make sure that you have strong Black partnership, you know, which is great. So which is, I mean,
that's great.
Yeah, hell yeah, that's great. But you got to be able to make sure that you are able to have strong partnerships, not just here, but in Europe, in the Americas, and so forth. Because when Panavision talks as Panavision Woodland Hills, London, Hong Kong, whatever. They don't just talk as Panavision South Africa. ARRI, when they talk, they're talking as ARRI in Munich, in London, in New York, and so forth. So when you're talking here, our entity is called Griot Facilities. When you're talking as Griot here, you're not talking Griot Baltimore, Griot New York, Griot LA, you know. So it becomes difficult to be able to talk from a position of power, you know.
That's very true.
Our unity is our power. What is it?
Power.
Oh, unity. Oh, yeah.
I'll talk to you about it.
Christian, I gotta go soon, man.
Yeah, we gotta go.
Get another call.
Yeah, we gotta go. It's 11. Well, thank you very much, people. I hope it's useful for us individually and collectively, and for our listeners. Thanks, Terrell, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, everybody. Love meeting you guys.
And everybody, in terms of reaching people, Jinna, your social media or email or whatever you feel is appropriate.
Oh yeah, so you can check us. You can send an email to Jinna@pegentertainment.com.africa. Sorry, Jinna.
Jinna, Jinna.
That's dope.
Yeah, I know. I really fought for that domain.
That's
Africa.
dope.
Nice.
And then my Instagram is at Jinna Mutune or Dede. And then yeah, on Twitter is the same.
Okay, thank you. Shawn Peters.
My Instagram is always the best, and that's at Shawn Peasy, SHAWNPEEZIE.
Thank you.
Oh.
Mandla.
Yeah, I'm not so good with that, but I am Mandla Dube email is the best way. Mandla Dube at iCloud.com.
Excellent. And Terrell, since you're here.
Terrell K. Porter on Instagram is the best way to get in contact with Terrell.K.Porter.
I'm gonna hit you up.
And anybody who has a question can hit me up and we can connect you with all of the above. And so, yeah, so thank you very much. We will be back. Hopefully we'll send out notices about next week, Wednesday, with the new subject. And anybody has bright ideas about specific action items, let us
I think we
know.
should make a list about for the artists that who you want to get in contact with.
Go again, sir?
I think you should make a list. We should make a list, a contact list for what artists that we want to have to be influencers for 1619.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, sure. So I've started a list in terms of some of the action items, and by all means, and we are on Instagram at, what is it, Mona Lisa, help me?
I
never know if it's abbreviated or what.
It's on the chat box, everybody.
Okay, can you add it in again so they don't have to scroll back? And on the website, online website is lightscameradiaspora.org. And so, yeah, that's it. All right, and we will continue. And we'll see each other on June 19th in South Africa. I love that idea. I love that.
See you guys later.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, peace.
Yeah, man. That was really cool.